This is the new podcast. It's going to hurt, but it won't kill you, where we talk about resilience, tenacity, and how we operate in the face of adversity. Everybody has a story. Today, we're spending time with Dr. Emeka Aludogbu. Welcome to the show, brother.
Appreciate you.
Hey, man. So we chatted a little bit before we sat down here, and unfortunately, I found out, you work with the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Mavs. I just, as a Giants fan, man, that was tough for me to accept that we actually sitting down, but I won't hold that against you. won't hold that against you, man. But seriously though, I've read, quite a bit of your story, your journey, and just for the audience here, I really wanted to give the floor to you to kind of kick it off. Tell us a little bit more about your story and what brought you here and what that journey looked like for you.
Man, it's been a long one. Obviously, I'm a sports doctor. I've been a chiropractor for 7 years, or it's going on 7 years now. So, it didn't really start off the way that, everybody sees now today. You see the nice suits, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You got the fresh cut, you got the jewelry, whatever. That's the glam. But truth be told, I didn't really want to be a doctor.
Mm.
That's the storyline I always come out with, because when I get the praises of the title, being a doctor, I always think to myself it almost kind of like hits me again, shit,
Yeah.
you are, because that was never the journey. That was never my outlook. Like, I play sports.
Couldn't have guessed.
I mean, I appreciate you. I played sports. I ran track. I played football, and my dream was to go to the next level.
Right.
You know what I mean? To play at the next level. But I've always had the passion of helping people. And being Nigerian background, I didn't come from a very health conscious background or health conscious family background. So, see my mother and how she operated within the Western medicine world, like everything that she had an issue with about, or, every time she had a pain, she had to run to go take a pill to suppress that or help that or whatever the case may be. And I think that's what kind of intuitively led me to that journey, become that path, because when football and everything didn't work out, I still knew I had it between the ears. You dig? So with that being said, what I didn't want to become, I became, which was, helping people out. And granted, I've had my share of exposure in some of the, I could say the pinnacle of my career is going to the Olympics, going to the Super Bowl, working with top name athletes, even still to today. I think that's kind of what intuitively led me to that, because my wholehearted passion was to help people,
Right.
was to try to give back, and want to figure out exactly how I could do that. So I'm sitting here with you today as a man that you see complete, but the road was rough, my brother.
Hey, man, I feel that. I feel that. Trust me. Part of your story, I did a little bit of reading on you, obviously, was you mentioned something about your mom, even just now, was that you watched her, and in many ways that inspired you. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, from the business side, you talk about a single woman, single-handed parent, I should say, raised all of us. I had 3 sisters, 1 stepsister, so it's really 5 of us, 4 sisters and me. But my mother single-handedly raised us from, and I just dial it back a little bit. Like, you hear me speaking today, I speak 3 languages. I'm Nigerian, born a Nigerian native. When I came here to the States, this is kind of like a intro to why my mother is who she is and why I admire her so much. But my native tongue is Igbo. When I got to the States, I failed 2nd grade because the teacher said that my English wasn't up to par.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So technically I couldn't speak English to the eyes of the English teacher, right? So nonetheless, my mother came here with us. She brought us here, single-handedly raised us, hustler. She's a very, very, very established businesswoman. And just watching how she'd wake up, running 2 jobs, and she wasn't when she coming here as a refugee, Nigerians come here to really establish a staple, right?
Yep.
A lot of my counterparts who are Nigerian and friends who are Nigerian, even my other families who are Nigerian, when we come to the States, it's not you don't take it as an advantage. You take advantage of it. You don't take it for granted.
Right. Right.
And so what my mom did was phenomenal, right? She brought us here, hustled 2 jobs, sometimes 3, depending on where we were living. I was living with my sisters, and I was living. We had 2 bedrooms, apartments. My mother's room, and I had rooms living with all my sisters. We all had bunk beds and all that other stuff.
Oh, man, I know that. I know that pain right there.
So you can imagine, and seeing a woman from a whole nother foreign country, became a registered nurse. She had multiple businesses. She, as far as I can remember, 4 different companies that she had opened. Successful in all of them, and within her own right. Now, obviously, she's had failures as well too, but who hasn't?
Right.
And I just watched her keep grinding. Right. We went from one apartment, living in a 1-bedroom, to the next apartment, living in a 2-bedroom. To the next apartment, I had my own room.
Oh yeah, there you go.
We finally get our house,
Yep.
and you know what I mean. And I get my own room. Like, oh shit, we moving up.
Exactly.
But subconsciously watching her was what I was. It was an encoding, because I was subconsciously watching the patterns, and you can call it genetics too. Maybe I've adopted something from her genetically, but the habits, I believe, and the consistency and the resilience.
There you go.
It was something that I think was ingrained in me to say to myself, shit, if my mother did it, a woman, all of us in another country,
Yep.
I got to do something
Yes,
different.
sir.
You know what I mean? Like I have no choice. And it's like most people would say, oh yeah, you could have done this. But to me, it was more like, here's the platform, or rather, here's what I've done.
Right.
I want you to match that or be better than me. And so she's my idol, man. So
I love that.
yeah.
I feel like that about my dad, man, because I have 5 older brothers, but I have my dad's name.
See?
So I gotta move in
Where
a
do you
completely
fall in?
different way. Man, I'm 8 out of 15.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of bunk beds, a little bit of like sharing clothes and all of that within my family.
So you get it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you said there, you mentioned that you came and failed the 2nd grade learning English as a new language. What type of impact do you think that actually had on you?
At the time?
Uh-huh.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
I was just like, well,
Yeah.
Over the curse,
got
but
you.
I'm feeling 2nd grade of English. You mean I could write a sentence?
Yep.
You mean because I didn't put a punctuation here, or comma there, or a dot here, or blah blah blah? The simplest thing. And in my head as a kid, I'm thinking like, what? But then looking back, I think failure taught me, okay, well now you got to buckle down a little bit,
Right.
pay a little bit more attention to detail, right? Maybe those commas that I missed out on, it might be minuscule to me, but it was a detail oriented to her, or the teacher at the time. And the way that I took it was, why not me? Why am I being held back? But I didn't. Now I'm thinking it's like, well, it wasn't my time.
Right.
You get me? So I think that what I learned from that, it was the patience, attention to detail, understanding that, and I started reading. I used to hate reading, bro. But now it's just like, that's a part of my daily regimen. At least a chapter a day.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Depending on what books that I'm reading. But that was the pinnacle of it. And now as a kid who couldn't speak English, you can't even tell whether or not that's
I would have never guessed it. You know
what I mean?
One of the things you just said, as far as like your daily regimen, is that you read. What inspired that piece of it? Was it just like those moments, or was it just over the period of you like, hey, if I'm going to be a doctor, I have to buckle down and read?
Well, I was actually more inclined to science and math.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I hated reading, but I knew that there was something about it. My mom used to tell me, right?
Yep.
But and I think it was more like the imagination side of me, the kid side of me, that was just always like curious about what are they saying in there, and how's this character acting, whatever. And so that curiosity led to like, other habits that I then developed, and I then genuinely started. And then when I really finished my my undergrad, I did my first master's. You had to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a choice anymore.
Yep.
Like it was a part of the regimen. Then when I got into my doctorate, you had no choice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is I think that lifestyle and then I would even take it back to saying like the lesson that I learned from failing the second grade is like I didn't want to be shamed again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was a little underlining like shame in me that came because I didn't want to let my mom down. And so apart from like the habits of building on to something else, there was an experience attachment in that sequence in that scenario. Really, I think there was a sequence of emotions that led me to never want to feel that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So, man, just from the work that you've done, the Nigerian women's national team, obviously operating your own company, being a doctor. I mean, we could continue to go on and on, but what would you say might be a moment in each of those experiences, if you have one specific that comes to mind, that'd be great, but where you had to be probably the most resilient?
Shit.
Tough question. Take your time.
Yeah, it's a tough question, man. Because it's like
Yep.
you don't really have like a specific moment. Because I almost feel like each moment warrants its own like,
Yep.
you know what I mean, meaning and its own identification. So I think the resilience act is almost like I see resilience as like the umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
and then the moments of experiences are just sequence of patterns that kind of build that resilience or that's governed by that resilience, if that makes sense.
You delivered that in a very methodical way.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Just that's the doctor in you, I think, man.
You know, so I think like everybody has the ability to be resilient within every situation and every scenario that they're given.
Yep.
I think it's more what keeps that resiliency, you being under that umbrella, is like discipline, habits, consistency. There's like certain little things that you kind of like have to harbor, right? And I think that's like what gives you that ability to go through whatever situation that's presented in front of you, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to that end, we talked about habits a second ago. We talked about characteristics. Are those some specific things that you think you do in your life that allow you to show up every single time that you need to show up?
Definitely, man. So part of the journey when my father passed away 13 years ago, I was just kind of meandering through life and not really knowing, my purpose. And this is, well within the journey, right?
Yep.
And that was the same year I tore my Achilles. The same year, I was trying to get drafted to go to play professional ball. That was the darkest years of my life, and so I started to meditate. So I think for the last 13 years, meditation has been one of the core tools that it's like I can't really go a day without meditating. Every morning I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I mean, even if it's gratitude, even if it's like, reciting my blessings, like, there's certain things that we kind of just go on a day to day, and we kind of forget and float through the day,
Yep.
not understanding to take time to just realize you've written a book, you know what I'm saying? You gotta look to yourself and hold that like you're an author. Shit, I'm not there yet. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, you're a doctor. I think you're all right.
But you're a whole author. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like the time that it took for you to be able to do that. That's just going back to what I'm saying. It's. I kind of skipped my deliverance there for a second. I was marveling at the book, to be honest with you.
I appreciate it, man.
I forget where I was going with that.
What were we talking about? Just the habits and meditation.
Yeah,
By the
so-
way, do you listen to Joe Dispenza?
Joe Dispenza is one of my guys.
My guy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I like Joe Dispenza. So good. So thank you for bringing that back to my thought process. So meditation.
Yep.
It was something that, when my that dark year in 2010 happened, I had to figure out how to, because I was just kind of floating.
Yep.
And I made a pact with God. I said, shit, it's either because I'm a martial artist. I knew I could fight. I was really athletic, so I knew that. So the other thing is, I knew I was smart. So I was like, okay, well, God, I don't have the ability. You took away that. Or I wouldn't say you took away, but
I got you.
you know what I mean? But
Yep.
okay, I can't play ball or run like I want to. Okay, well, I know if I can't run, I can use my hands and I can fight, and I still have my brain. So I said, God, one of two things is going to happen. After I heal my Achilles, I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to start beating a lot of people up, right?
Yeah.
Or go back to school and get really good at some subject and help people.
Yep.
And that was the latter was the decision that the pact that him, the universe and I made, and God, whatever you choose to believe, but God and I made that pact and that agreement. And so I went back to school. And here I am helping people. I'm still a martial artist in my own right and things I practice. But again, going back to what I was saying, the meditation helped me kind of understand that, right? The awareness to be in the time of knowing I lost this, but I didn't lose it. It's a lesson, right? There's a lesson learned. And through my meditative practices on a daily basis, I became more conscious. I became more aware. I became more intent.
Right.
There was more intent behind things that I was doing. And so I think to your question, it's like you have to, my day-to-day regimen and my tool is meditation. If I get up in the morning, I know that I meditate, that grounds me and that puts me in a place of zen. So my anchoring is in anything that goes, that's my resilience.
Yeah.
That's how I become resilient.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that's like my biggest tool on a day-to-day basis, man.
It's funny, man, because like part of my process after going through a lot of what's in this book, I was meditating before, but then as I started going through all of these things, I'm like, man, this 15 minutes has to be an hour now. Like I gotta go longer because I'd rather be there than over here.
Yeah, man.
And
and when you get there, it's a beautiful thing.
yeah, it is, man. Because I've literally had moments where it's just like I'm in a completely different world, and the feeling that you get when you're able to tap in like that, you can't replace that.
At all.
Because once you do that on a consistent basis, you realize all the things that happen out here are a result of the work that you do
100%.
every single day on yourself, especially within that meditation.
100%.
So it's interesting, man, just hearing a lot of what you're saying. I'm just trying to figure out what you don't do. Because, I mean, it just...
Man, look. I got one life to live.
Doctor,
Maximizing all of it.
Jiu-jitsu. And another part of my process is I do push-ups every day, but then I see her next year, I'm like, man, don't even tell him that, because this dude over here is just like stacked.
You got this one, man. You got this one.
Yeah.
Man.
So, man, another thing is I was, obviously learning about who you are as a person. I saw another interview that you did. You said you forgot your why. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh man, that was a moment in my life of transitioning. I started a company in 2019. Now it's a fully ongoing company, but that was more like an investment that I did. We started it, and I just put some money aside. I gave the guys, and I trusted my guys. At that time, I was still practicing, but I started to get really good at numbers. I started to get really good at investments and strategizing and understand strategy. And so when that became more prevalent to my brain, there was nothing else that I wouldn't say there was nothing else. I started to see how I could then start to grow my practice. Not only grow my practice, but remove myself from being in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
I started to see how I could implement others within my practice, other doctors, other disciplines, and so on and so. So I became really savvy on the business side, right? When that started to become more prevalent, I was more far removed from like being able to help patients, talk to patients, give that time. And, in medicine, like there's reasons why Western medicine is the way that it is set up, because doctors are, you go to the doctor's office, they spend 5 minutes for a reason,
Right?
Because it's time, right? It's time sensitive because it's the constant turnover. That's why they're there, right? So they're not there to give you all the time that you're asking for. For me, that was like a big pivotal part of my practice. I'd spend an hour with a patient, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on how the treatment is going. But then when you start to get into more in-depth how your business is growing, you have to strategize and kind of remove yourself. You become less available.
Yep.
When I became less available, I started to lose my why. because then I started to think more so, how can I make $1 versus how can I help this person? And when I started to get into that area of thinking, or that thought process, I was like, okay, it was time to go.
Yeah.
So I took a step back, and my goal was to just condense my practice and then focus where I knew that my expertise would lie. So I think I look at it in two ways. You have a gift, and you have a talent, right? So my gift has always been helping people.
Right.
I know how to heal someone. I know the body very well. I'm really intuitive. That's the gift. My talent is I have the business acumen. I understand numbers. I can strategize. I understand how to talk to people. I understand how to put people in different places to be successful. I understand how to strategize. I'm a CEO of my company. Operations comes like second to none. So from that standpoint, I know how to run a company very well. I've done it 4 different times. This is going to be my 5th time. So from that standpoint, that was why I kind of had to take a step back to really focus on what my talent was, knowing that I never would lose my gift.
That's a very powerful thing to say, brother. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a gift like you have, and then a talent like you have, when you combine those two, that could be
Dangerous.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So I guess the question for me on that side of things is there an area where you feel that you'll be able to balance that?
Area, or is there time?
Area, time, whatever you think is appropriate.
You know, I do see myself going back to medicine one day. I think the path right now and the journey right now is that I've been doing good for a lot of people. I'm going to do good for the world. So my company is doing good for the world. And, once we close that chapter, then I go back to medicine, because then I think that I can do medicine the way I want to do medicine.
Right.
Because now I'm not subjected to whether you can afford me or not. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm not subjected to how many people walk through my door in order for me to just keep the lights on. So then the narrative changes a little bit. Now I'm in control.
Right. I think another piece of what I read about you, I did some reading about you, clearly, was that, you talked about launching a community garden.
Yeah.
Tell me what doing something like that would mean to you.
Dude, I mean, first of all, in Nigeria, right? Everything that you do and you see in the U.S. from a manufacturing standpoint, there's a high level of efficiency that goes into the production of rice, the production of yams, the production of all these things. When you go to third world countries, most of the time, if those machineries are not available, the people are the one doing the work. I've been on the side of where I've seen the people do the work. So seeing that, my mother has cultivated. She has she has a green thumb too. My mother, she has an avocado in Nigeria, in our land. She has an avocado farm. She has a guava farm. She has and I grew up in a farm.
Right.
Goats, chickens, lizards, all that shit.
That's dope. That's dope. I love it.
You know what I mean? So my mom, she has a grape farm. She has grapes in her garden. She has guava. She has avocado. She has tomatoes. She has okra. She has cilantro. She has thyme. She grows all of these things.
Man.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think community garden is like the way to start to teach the youth. When you go and buy a plot of land, and then everyone can come in there to grow what they want to grow, and then at the same time share what they have grown. Isn't that how we were supposed to be doing in the first place?
Absolutely.
That's like the concept of keeping each other accountable, right? Keeping each other somewhat alive.
Yeah.
Because the foods that you're eating today, I mean, dude, how much shit is being sprayed in it? They're talking about AI is fucking printing meat now. I'm like,
man,
Jesus Christ. Like, where is that going?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, and now you have your own, you can control your own destiny, which goes back what I was talking about my mother, really, and all these medications that she was taking before. She no longer takes it now. But the knowledge that she has now, no one can take away. Same thing with the gardening. If you teach someone how to freaking go and garden, cilantro, tomatoes, okra. My sister does it a lot, and she has a beautiful garden in her house. But if you teach them, you teach these kids, they can only be able to get better and
Yep.
understand exactly what they're putting in their body.
Just listening to you talk, man, you have an obvious passion for people. And
Humanitarian.
there you go.
Yeah.
And an obvious passion for what you do. What's next for you?
Well, hopefully in my 40s I can give back a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's always been in hindsight. Figure out how to penetrate the education system, not in the U.S. obviously, but I want to do a lot of work over in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I want to penetrate the education system. I want to penetrate even the medical industry and the medical system. But there's a lot of legs and a lot of ways that you have to cover ground in order for you to do all of that. And philanthropy work is in the future. Don't know the level of it yet. Don't know where it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, but I do know it's going to be very philanthropic in a lot of sense.
So with that said, what would you say are like the two top areas of focus for you at this exact moment?
My company?
Yeah, with it's a free question. However you feel that you want to answer that. So whether it's your company, you as an individual, however you feel about the question.
Now you open it up like that. It's like shit.
Hey man, we having a conversation,
right? I'm still doing a lot of self work because I think like in order for you to clean someone else's house, you have to clean your own house.
Yep.
So a lot of my internal work, a lot of my self work, I'm still doing all of that. There's a lot of healing that's constantly happening. I think that it's just me kind of the transition, right? Most people know me as doctor. Most people that have seen me now as a businessman or whatever the philanthropy or whatever the idea is. I think that when you go through a transition, you kind of have to shed.
Yeah.
Right. And shedding takes so much work. And in order for you to make anything impactful or as you're building into this next phase of life, you can't have any attachments going with you. And I think where I am right now, although we're doing great things in my company, we're still building. I think that the process of shedding also is going to be, that's what I'm really, really focused on right now is myself shedding and also, so when it's time to really give people what they need, I will be fully made. Well, I may never be ready, but you get the idea. So yeah.
If you're open to share, what would be something you say, hey, in order for me to get to the next step, I have to shed this first. If I don't shed this, then I'll hold myself back.
First thing that comes to my mind, the idea of control. I think you plan you make all these plans, and you make all these, you have these goals, and of course you can be disciplined, you can be consistent, you can do all the stuff, but things are always gonna, not everything is gonna go your way. So planning is an idea. Is I'm planning, but I am trying to control. But you make a plan and then you submit it,
Right.
and that submission is basically you're relinquishing, right, your control. So when you submit. And the act of submission is hard for most people because as humans, we want to always hold on. But when you make the plan, you submit, you leave control, but then the work that you do along the way, we already know that the plan has been submitted. When you try to control it, oh, no, I'll go this way, nope, I'll do this, nope. You may even take you a longer path to get in there, but then you just say, as opposed to when something happens, instead of you saying, nope, time goes, like, wait, now you take a little step back, like, wait a minute,
Right.
That's interesting. What the hell is that about, right? So that's submission.
So I think too, like in those times, that's when we start to act in survival mode because we're literally trying to control,
figure out what the hell happened,
everything. Like right, so like we operate in survival mode and we put ourselves in a position where since we're trying to control everything, when something goes wrong, it's like everything just kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Do you have any moments historically where you think that may have happened for you, and how did you battle through that?
Shit, man, this happened many a times.
Fair enough.
It's happened many a times, man. This happened in 2019. This happened. I mean, 2019 was probably the most pivotal year where I lost a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it got me back. It sent me all the way back to like living with my mom.
Wow.
You know, there's some people who are close to me knows that year was, you know, besides the 10 years ago losing my dad and injury, but when you've built something and you watch it literally get ripped right off from underneath your feet, it is demoralizing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh
like,
yeah.
You just like start questioning everything. So that year was it was a challenging year. That year I really had to figure out if I was resilient or not.
Yeah.
That was because I, moving back to at 30, 32, 30, 31, 32, moving back and you're living in your mom's house again and you got your son and you know what I mean? Like there are some things that come with humility in that time. And I think that it really forced me to really think whether I lost or I'm going to allow myself to lose.
Right.
And I think that moment in time, what ended up happening was that my mindset flipped. And I think my sister was the one who said it. She said it best, when she said it 10 years ago, she was like, "Why not you?" And so when I recall that scenario 13 years ago with my losing my pops, when I recall my sisters in that conversation, it played back in my head in 2019. And then when why not you came, and then the first thought came to my mind, I was like, well, shit, if I made this motherfucker X amount of money, I can do this shit again.
Right. There you go.
I can do it again.
Yep.
You know what? Okay, cool. So in my mind, I had already clicked and accepted that. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So I can do this. I have done this before. So if I can do this for someone, I can do this for myself. And here we are.
So again, we talked about it a little bit, but I want you to tell me a little bit more about your company and the work that you're doing on that side.
Man, it's so the name of the company is called Terramer Inc.
Okay.
It's a bioplastics technology company. And essentially what we are combating is the petroleum plastic world. There's tons of messages, articles, researches that's coming out now, and pretty much trying to get people's attention that our world is in trouble. The planet is in trouble. There are landfills in Indonesia. There's a guy by the name of John. I forget John's last name, but he's doing phenomenal work in Indonesia. Landfills of just garbage, plastic debris that have just been flooded into the ocean, and sometimes when it rains, it washes into the oceans. You have 3 pockets in the world that are the size of Texas. It's called the dead zone.
Wow.
Look it up. And these places are basically areas of just plastics. Dude, it takes
the size of Texas.
The size of Texas.
Oh,
3
man,
areas
that's some perspective.
and fish don't swim there.
Wow.
Because they literally go there and they die. Literally. So these areas accumulate all these plastics and that we use. They're they can't, it takes 350 to 400 years for a single bottle to decompose. Right. Then when it decomposes, if it's in the water, if it's in landfills, whatever the case may be, if it's in the ocean, it turns into microplastics, right? And these microplastics get inside of your algae, get inside of your ocean food debris, so on and so forth. And it gets inside of the fish. And what we're seeing now, scientists are actually looking at the fish and they're seeing that there's plastics inside of the fish, and we are consuming. Those plastics are now getting inside of our body. Each human being consumes 1 credit card worth of plastic every week.
Wow.
Every week. So what does that do? For the women, it displaces their hormones.
Wow.
You have premenopause, you have cystic, you have ovarian cysts. You have all these issues that just come about, but this is the years of compilement. This is not something that just happens overnight. So anyways, I can go on about that.
Hey, man, take your time. Take your time, because I'm like, my mind is blown hearing a credit card every week.
People just don't know.
Yeah.
Because single-use plastic, you cannot recycle it. Think about it for a second. If I get a water bottle or if I get a Coca-Cola bottle that has Coke in it, it sits inside of this plastic. That plastic at sometimes heat will hit it, cold would hit it, right? It'll get cold, it'll get hot. So all these different temperatures are making this plastic form, because that's what happens whenever when plastic touches a certain temperature. It'll expand, it'll contract, it'll expand, it'll contract. Well, while it's doing that, the inner layer of the plastic has contaminants are actually leaching out. They're called phthalates. So they leach out into the liquid, or it has an exchange. If you have water, or if you have whatever, there's an exchange. The phthalates leaches out into your liquid. You consume that, right? You're drinking now. But not even then, if you wanted to recycle this same plastic bottle, this plastic bottle goes to get recycled because it has been exposed to contamination. Most of the time when they break it down, that plastic cannot be reused. So where does it go? No one knows. So when they talk about recycling this, and I'd say there's a statistics that says about 4.7 plastics in the U.S. is what actually gets recycled. So where the hell the rest go? No one knows. Now, obviously, there's different categories of plastic, so one can argue, what's actually being sent where. But to know that petroleum-based plastic is not as the truth is no longer there. The truth is becoming exposed.
Yeah,
it's happening. So what my company does is we make these biodegradable and compostable plastics. We call them bioplastics because they're made from plants.
okay.
So what we do, we get it from hemp, and we cultivate the hemp. Now, it's not your THC, so nobody's getting high off this shit. So. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, you probably want to clarify that.
You know what I mean? But we are using the stalks.
Yep.
And the stalks of the plant. The stalks of the plant is what we use. The stalks, the debris, the throwaway, the stuff that you don't really give a shit about anymore. We repurpose that product, and then we make straws, we make cutleries, we make cups, we make grocery bags, produce bags, because we know what hemp is the mother plant, right? It has all the properties that can withstand it. Hemp is actually stronger than steel. You have about, don't quote me, it's between 72 to 78 kilograms of hemp in GM Motors, Ford, BMW, Porsche. You probably know about that.
Man, you are educating me completely now.
It's crazy because we don't know that hemp is actually used in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But, in the 60s, the 40s, the 60s, they banned it because it was a big war against it, right? They, the Cotton family, the Rothschilds, and all those other people, they came in to suppress it, to then re-identify it as hemp, as cannabis. Oh, you're getting high. Oh, you want to smoke? I'm like, no.
Because the goal is get everybody on the pills and all these. Yeah, I got you.
Hemp is better than cotton.
Yep.
It's more sustainable than cotton. It's more long-lasting than cotton. It's actually healthier than cotton, right? You have hemp. That hemp has so many different properties. You have hempcrete. And you didn't know you can make, hempcrete. You can turn hemp fibers because it actually can withstand the burns, right? So if your house were to catch on fire, hemp could actually suppress and keep that. And it's a neutral temperature plant, which means that your house won't get too hot and your house won't get too cold. You know what I mean? So there's so much. It's a mother plant.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And I think that what we are doing is re-educating the public. First of all, let's get rid of the stigma. We already know that hemp it has the properties it has, and it can help. And second of all, the single-use plastics, unfortunately, we are going up against some really, really, really heavy hitters, which are the petroleum guys, the oil companies. But the change is coming because everybody's waking up.
Right.
We want better for our planets. We want better for our kids. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about anyone. It's about the kids to come. Because what are we leaving the planet here left like? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to educate them on how to take care of it, whatever the hell's left of it. This puts us in 2050. There was a statistical analysis that came out last year. It said by 2050, there will be more microplastics in the ocean. The stats came out again. I think it was Bloomberg Business. They released it. I believe it was either February of this year. Now it's 2042.
Wow. Not very far from that.
No.
I very much appreciate the passion in which you just delivered all of what you just said. And I think it's apparent to me, but I want you to be able to share with the audience what type of impact that you actually want to have with the work that you're doing from that standpoint?
Man, I mean, it's just teach, educate. Like
Yep.
we have to re-educate the we have to reorganize and rethink how we're approaching education. I think if we don't know why something is happening, then we can't just go off of just hearsay. Ask questions. Like we're not teaching kids critical thinking anymore. We're not teaching kids how to be creative. Like, that was like one of the sides of the brains that as a kid, like that was the most prominent. But then you started using the other side of the brain and then suppressed creativity, it suppressed all these other elements and all these other talents that they may have had. So we have to think about how do we re-educate the kids and reorganize the material that we're dishing out to the public, because there's so much confusion. There's so much information out there now. It's just basically trying to figure out, get it into the system, but get the right information into the system. I think that's what the sustainability space is about. We have to reteach everybody how to take care of your house, because this planet is your house. You drink the water and you throw the shit on the sidewalk, well, you just dirtied your house.
Right.
So we have to teach you not. It's like we're teaching kids again. We're all adults.
Oh yeah.
but we have to be kids again, right? And we have to go relearn or unlearn. That's my hashtag. Unlearn.
Unlearn.
You have to unlearn to learn, or rather, I'm sorry, learn to unlearn. That's my hashtag.
Beautiful.
Learn to unlearn. So all the shit that we've known, it's old. It's outdated. New information. So that's the angle we're taking, man. It's just teaching.
Well, I very much appreciate the opportunity to share that piece of it. Where can people find more information?
So our page is Terramer Inc. _technology.
Okay.
That's the Instagram hashtag. TerramerInc.com is our website. We're doing a lot of stuff. We did some stuff with Waves of Recovery here in Santa Monica. We did an ocean cleanup, and so we're trying to do a little bit more community outreach work. The Waves of Recovery actually is a rehab. They kind of teach those who will come out of rehab or those who are in rehab. They teach them to use Wave as recovery. So what we do is partner up with those people, companies like that. So we go out on beaches and we do cleanups. We do cleanups and we, clean up the debris on the beach, and we do adopt beaches. And so things like that. We're trying to get a little bit more community focused and community driven, but we try to get in pockets of different areas, and we're giving out hemp grocery bags, hemp straws, just, trying to populate the world as much as possible with our product, man. So
I love it.
yeah, man.
Again, if there's any way that I could share
Yeah.
on that, I will definitely do that. Any way I can support, I could definitely do that,
Much
man. But
appreciated, brother.
I appreciate everything that you just shared, because I feel like I just need to go hop in the book right now, learn some more. So I'm definitely gonna, on my side of things, actually do some more research to see how I think we all can have an impact on that.
For sure, man. We got one world, man. Shit, we got one planet.
I love it, man. So honestly, bro, there's a lot that I think I could talk to you about, just because like our scenarios have very similar like
crazy,
storylines.
right?
I promise you. But with considering time and all of that, if there's any piece of advice, just based on your experience, obviously, that you could talk about for somebody being resilient, what would be those words that you share with somebody?
Words or word?
Words.
Patience.
Okay.
Yeah, dude. Like, just be patient with yourself, man. Like, there's sometimes we kind of like, sometimes we forget to be patient with ourselves.
Yep.
And I think that's like that was also another big part of my healing process. And maybe that me sharing it with someone, maybe that could also help them in their healing process. It's
Man, that's where all of that came from, bro.
Yeah.
I think I got to a point in my life as I'm going through all of this. I said, hey, you're not Superman.
Man.
You tried to be.
Trust
It didn't work out.
me.
You are not Superman. You found
Trust
your kryptonite 10 different times. Like, take your time, slow down, be patient with yourself, go through this process. And in that, also be transparent and allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So with that said, I just wanted to ask you if you had any final thoughts that you wanted to close us out with?
Man, I am honored to be here, my brother, and I'm grateful for you extending the olive branch and giving me the platform.
Absolutely.
I think that the biggest thing that I see as we continue to, collaborate and, voice, I've always used to be like very shy about talking and very shy about my voice or using my voice.
Yeah.
But, when I'm presented with opportunities or presented, when our good friend Joe hit me up, he was like, hey, man, I think it's a podcast. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I told him I've been wanting to kind of get more into it now that, you always feel like now I have words to say.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I said, like, I have more to talk about now. Yeah.
but and that's it, man. I tip my hat off to you because I think that's where it's more allowing this space, my voice, your voice, for the others in the audience that are listening to be able to like grab something, feed off of it, and maybe that their resilience, they're giving up on being resilient, and that could be, an area where it might have been able to give them something to not give up. So it's more about you than it is.
Oh, man, it's about us, brother.
Yeah,
I say this, at the end of the day, I think everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's way more that you have. There's a lot more that you can give. Very much appreciate your time coming on here and actually sharing that, man, because, again, I think there's so many similarities between my story, your story, and actually I think the work that you do to heal people, just even from hearing you talk about it, it's going to be healing for somebody. So I very much appreciate you coming on today. Obviously, again, everybody has a story. So no matter what life throws at you, no matter what happens, how tough it gets, you got to remember, it's going to hurt, but it won't kill you. Dr. Emeka, everybody.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you both.